starry glow. The wind blew dry, carrying the scent of sage and cattle. It was 1886, and in these lands, life showed no mercy to those who couldn't stand on their own. Iris Caldwell tightened the reins of her horse as she watched the Stillwater Ranch spread out before her. Fences of splintered wood, a leaning barn, and a house that had once been white but now wore the color of the earth. From inside came shouts, hurried male voices, the cry of a newborn. Miss Caldwell, a tall, broad-shouldered man, came running from the stable, his hat askew. My worker, his wife is in trouble. The baby is coming, but something isn't right. You're the only midwife for 50 miles. Iris asked no further questions. She dismounted in one swift move, grabbed her leather bag, and ran toward the small cabin behind the main house. A young woman, pale as snow, bleeding too much. The baby was stuck. Without hesitation, Iris rolled up her sleeves and got to work. Hot water, clean towels. Her voice was now firm, leaving no room for fear. The hours dragged on. Outside, the ranch owner, Garrett Stillwater, paced back and forth on the porch, his fists clenched. From the main house came children's voices. Someone was crying, another shouting. There was no woman in that house, just him and 6 kids. When the baby's strong cry finally rang out, Garrett exhaled in relief. Iris emerged with her sleeves rolled up, blood stains on her apron, but her eyes were bright. "They'll live," she said simply. "Mother and son," the worker came out crying with gratitude. "Thank you, miss. I don't know how to repay you. You owe me nothing, just take care of them." Garrett approached, removing his hat. "Miss Caldwell, allow me to at least offer you coffee. You've ridden far and worked hard." Iris, tired, accepted. She followed Garrett into the main house, and what she saw stopped her cold. Dirty dishes piled high, clothes strewn everywhere. A small child crying on the floor with a dirty face, a girl trying to comb another's hair and pulling it, 2 boys fighting over stale bread. "It's been like this since my wife died 2 years ago," Garrett said, looking out the window. "There are 6 of them. Wyatt 13, Louisa 12, Jasper 9, Clementine 7, Hazel 5, and little Teddy 3. Iris set her bag on the table without asking permission, walked over to little Teddy, picked him up, wiped his face with the edge of her skirt, and rocked him gently. The boy calmed instantly, clinging to her. "Mr. Stillwater, you need help here. These children need—" "I know," he interrupted, his voice rough. "But there are no women in town willing to come. They say it's too much. 6 motherless kids, an isolated ranch." Iris swallowed. The words came out before she could stop them. "I can't have children, Mr. Stillwater. My husband left me for that 3 years ago. He said a woman who can't give children is worth nothing." Garrett stared for a long moment, then something softened in his eyes and a small smile curved his lips. "That's good, miss," he said quietly but sincerely. "I already have more kids than I can handle. I don't need someone to give me more. I need someone to help take care of the ones I already have." Silence filled the kitchen. Teddy snuggled against Iris's chest. Louisa watched them from the stairs, suspicious but curious. Wyatt watched from the barn. "Stay," Garrett said. "Even if just a few days, I'll pay you. The kids need whatever you can give them." Iris looked at the little one in her arms, then at the other 5 dirty but hopeful faces. Something moved in her chest, something that had been asleep for years. "I'll stay," she whispered, "just for a while." But as she said it, feeling the warm weight of Teddy against her heart and seeing the hope in Garrett's eyes, they both knew that a while could turn into something much longer. Because in that moment, in that chaotic kitchen, something had begun to heal. The first rays of dawn were barely touching the horizon when Iris woke in the small room next to the kitchen. The bed was narrow, the sheets rough but clean. She dressed quickly, braided her brown hair, and walked barefoot into the kitchen. What she found made her smile. Garrett was standing at the stove trying to make oatmeal, but the pot was smoking dangerously. Teddy sat on the floor banging a spoon against an old pot. Hazel was crying because she couldn't find her shoes. Jasper and Clementine were arguing over who would feed the chickens. "Good morning," Iris said loudly. Everyone froze. Garrett turned around, a smudge of ash on his cheek. "Miss Caldwell, I didn't mean to wake you." "I'm already awake," she replied, taking the spatula from his hand. "And if we're going to work together, call me Iris." Over the next few days, the house began to breathe again. Iris washed mountains of laundry, mended torn pants, organized the pantry, and taught Wyatt how to herd the cattle properly. She showed Jasper how to fix a fence without hurting himself and slowly convinced Clementine that talking wasn't as scary as silence. The girl had stopped speaking after her mother died, 2 years of silence. But one afternoon, while Iris was making bread, Clementine approached, gently tugged her skirt, and whispered, "Will you teach me?" Iris knelt immediately. "What do you want to learn, sweetheart?" "To make bread like Mama used to." Tears stung Iris's eyes, but she didn't let them fall. She picked up Clementine, sat her on a high chair, and put an improvised apron on her. "All right, little one, first we need like this." From the porch, Garrett watched through the window. Wyatt, cleaning a bridle beside him, murmured, "She's different, not like the other ladies from town." "Yeah," Garrett replied, "she's different," but not everyone was convinced. Louisa, the oldest girl, watched Iris with cold, distant eyes. She didn't speak to her, didn't accept her help. And every time Iris tried to get close, Louisa pulled away. One night, after the others had fallen asleep, Iris found Louisa sitting alone on the porch looking at the stars. She sat beside her without saying a word. "You're not my mother," Louisa finally said, her voice hard but trembling. "I know," Iris replied softly, "and I'm not trying to be." Then why are you here? For money, for pity? Iris took a deep breath. I'm here because I have nowhere else to go, because I know what it feels like to be broken inside, and because when your little brother hugged me the first day, it was the first time in 3 years I felt like I was worth something. Louisa didn't reply, but she didn't move away either. They stayed like that under the stars until the cold forced them inside. The days turned into weeks. Iris discovered that Wyatt was brilliant with numbers but couldn't read well. Jasper had nightmares where he screamed his mother's name. Hazel collected smooth river stones and hid them under her pillow. And Teddy followed her everywhere, calling her Mama Iris with a naturalness that both broke and healed her heart. One morning while Iris was making breakfast, Garrett came in removing his hat. The neighbors are talking, he said without preamble. Iris stopped stirring the eggs. What are they saying? That a single woman living here isn't right, that the children are in an improper situation. Silence fell heavily between them. Iris gripped the wooden spoon. Should I leave? She whispered. I don't want to cause you trouble. No, Garrett said firmly, stepping forward. I don't want you to leave. The children need you. I need you too. Their eyes met. Something passed between them, something nameless but as real as the ground beneath their feet. That afternoon, while Iris was hanging laundry, Hazel ran toward her with a wild yellow flower. For you, Mama Iris, the little girl said, beaming. Iris took the flower, knelt down, and hugged the child. Over Hazel's shoulder, she saw Garrett watching them from the stable. Their gazes held, and in that moment she knew that this place, these children, this silent man, they had become home. The town of Copper Ridge wasn't large, but what it lacked in size it made up for in gossip. By the third week, Iris Caldwell's name was on every tongue. A single woman living with a widower, murmured Mrs. Pritchard at the general store. With those poor children as witnesses, it's a shame. Iris heard every word while buying supplies. She stood still at the counter, pretending not to hear. She paid in silence and left. Only on the road home did she allow the tears to fall. That night, while preparing dinner, she heard a horse approaching. She peered through the window and her blood ran cold. Thomas Caldwell, her ex-husband, tall, easy smile, new suit. He dismounted confidently. Iris went out to the porch, closing the door behind her. Thomas, what are you doing here? I've been looking for you for months, sweetheart. I heard you were here. That's none of your business where I am. Of course it is, he said. You're still my wife. We never signed the divorce papers. Iris's stomach dropped. It was true. What do you want? I want you to come back. I have money now, a business in Cheyenne. We can try again. No, Iris said simply. Thomas's smile faded. No, what future do you have here, taking care of someone else's children? People are saying you're his lover. I'd rather be the imagined lover of a good man than the real wife of a cruel one. Thomas took a threatening step forward. I still have rights over you. What's going on here? Garrett's voice cut through the air. He came out of the barn, hammer in hand. Wyatt followed. I came for my wife, Thomas said. She doesn't seem to want to leave, Garrett replied. She's my wife, legally. On my ranch, no one takes anyone by force. The two men stared each other down. Thomas stepped back, but his gaze was venomous. This isn't over. I'll come back with papers. He rode off at a gallop. Iris collapsed onto the steps, trembling. Garrett sat beside her. Is it true? Still married to him? Iris nodded, crying. We never signed the divorce. I didn't have the money. Then we'll fix it. We'll find a lawyer. I don't have money. I do, because the children need you and because I need you too. The door burst open. Lusa stood there, eyes red. Are you going to leave? Are you going to leave us? I knew it. No one ever stays. She ran to the barn, sobbing. Iris followed her, finding her among the hay bales. Your mother didn't choose to leave, Lusa. She loved you. Then why did she go? Because sometimes the world is unfair, but that doesn't mean we stop loving. Did you lose someone too? I lost a baby and a cruel husband, but I haven't lost the ability to love. Do you promise you'll stay? I promise I'll fight to stay. Louisa lunged forward, hugging her tightly. When they returned, Garrett was on the porch. The neighbors are going to make things worse. I know. Then we need to be prepared, but neither knew how soon the storm would arrive. The storm came 3 days later. Iris was in the garden with Clementine when she saw the cloud of dust, 3 riders in a black carriage. Her heart stopped. Garrett came out of the stable. The riders stopped in front of the house. The first to dismount was a short man with a thick mustache. Garrett Stillwater, his voice was rough. That's me, who's asking? Marshall Hendricks from Cheyenne. He pulled out a paper. This is a court order. Mrs. Iris Caldwell is legally married to Thomas Caldwell. He has filed a petition for her return to the marital home. Iris felt the world tilt. I'm not going, she said, her voice firm. It's not your decision, ma'am, it's the law. Garrett stepped forward. She doesn't want to go, that should be enough. The law doesn't work that way. From the carriage, Thomas stepped down, smiling. Iris, don't make this hard. Come with me now. No, Iris said, I'd rather die than go back with you. Garrett positioned himself, tall and immovable. You heard the lady. The marshal sighed. Stillwater, if you resist, I'll have to arrest you. Suddenly, a small voice cut through the air. No, Louisa ran out, followed by the other children. She planted herself in front of Iris, arms outstretched. You can't take her, she's our mom. Hazel and Teddy hugged Iris's legs, crying. Jasper stood beside his father. Wyatt picked up a rake, holding it firm. She stays, Wyatt said, his voice trembling. The marshal looked at the children, something like compassion on his face. Do you have proof of abuse, ma'am? He abandoned me when I couldn't have children. He told me I was worth nothing, but he didn't hit me. Then legally, a new sound came down the road, more horses. Iris looked and saw something unexpected, the whole town. Mrs. Kowalski, the blacksmith, Dr. Preston, even Mrs. Pritchard. A dozen wagons raising golden dust. Dr. Preston dismounted first. Marshal Hendricks, we've come to testify. Testify to what? That Iris Caldwell has been a blessing to this community, that she's cared for 6 children as if they were her own, that she saved lives. Mrs. Kowalski spoke up, and I testify that Thomas Caldwell abandoned her 3 years ago, leaving her with nothing. One by one the neighbors spoke. The marshal listened to everything. Mr. Caldwell, is it true you abandoned your wife? Thomas gritted his teeth. Yes, but I'm still her husband. Marital abandonment is grounds for divorce, the marshal said. With these testimonies, any judge would approve it. He looked at Iris. You'll need a lawyer. I can pay for one, Garrett said without hesitation. Thomas stepped forward, furious. She's my wife, not anymore, the marshal said firmly. I suggest you sign the papers voluntarily, because if this goes to trial, you will lose. Thomas looked around, saw the hard faces, Garrett's determination, the children clinging to Iris. Let her stay then, she's not worth it. He rode off at a gallop. This time for good, Iris dropped to her knees, surrounded by 6 children hugging her. Garrett knelt beside her, his hand covering hers. It's over, he whispered. Thank you, Iris said to the neighbors. Thank you all. Mrs. Pritchard approached, cheeks red. We judged without knowing, but now we see what you've done for this family. Iris smiled through her tears. And as the sun sank over the hills, surrounded by children calling her Mom, and a man who looked at her as if she were the answer to his prayers, Iris Caldwell finally believed something she had forgotten, that she was worth staying for, worth fighting for, worth loving. 2 weeks after Thomas left, life at the Stillwater Ranch seemed to have found its rhythm. Iris worked in the garden every morning, taught the children in the afternoons, and at night sat on the porch with Garrett, sharing coffee in comfortable silences. But the peace wouldn't last. It was a Tuesday when the official carriage arrived. This time it wasn't the marshal, but a thin man in a dark suit with small spectacles. He carried a leather folder under his arm. Mr. Stillwater, his voice was nasally irritating. Yes, I'm Mr. Hutchins from the Territorial Welfare Department. He opened his folder. I've received multiple complaints regarding the living conditions of the miners on this property. Iris came out of the house, drying her hands on her apron. Garrett frowned. Complaints from whom? That's confidential, but it's alleged that 6 miners are living in a home without an appropriate maternal figure, under the care of a single woman who has no legal relationship to them or to you. I take care of these children, Iris said, her voice trembling but firm. That may be, ma'am, but according to our regulations, a single woman living with a widow and unrelated children constitutes an improper situation. He pulled out a paper. I am authorized to assess the situation, and if I deem it necessary, the children will be moved to the Cheyenne orphanage until it's resolved. Iris's world stopped. You can't do that. I can and I will if I determine it's in the best interest of the miners. Louisa appeared in the doorway, her face pale. She had heard everything. Behind her, the other children peeked out, frightened. Hutchins spent the next 2 hours inspecting the house, questioning the children, taking notes. Iris followed him, her heart pounding. Garrett stayed close, jaw tight. Finally, Hutchins closed his folder. The house is clean, the children seem well fed and educated. He paused, but the fact remains, there is no legal family structure here. Miss Caldwell is not their mother, nor their guardian, nor your wife, Mr. Stillwater. Then I'll marry her, Garrett said suddenly. Silence fell like a stone. Iris looked at him, eyes wide. The children held their breath. Hutchins raised an eyebrow. Excuse me, I'll marry her, Garrett repeated, looking at Iris. If that's what it takes to keep this family together, I'll do it. Garrett, Iris began, her voice breaking. I'm not asking out of pity, he said softly. I'm asking because it's the right thing to do, because these children need you, because I need you. Hutchins cleared his throat, uncomfortable. Well, that would certainly resolve the legal issue, but I would need proof of marriage within 10 days, otherwise I will proceed with the removal of the minors. You'll have your proof, Garrett said. When Hutchins left, Iris stood on the porch, trembling. Garrett approached slowly. You don't have to do this out of obligation, she whispered. I'm not doing it out of obligation, he replied, taking her hand. I'm doing it because in these months you've become the heart of this house. Because when I see you with the children, I see someone who loves without conditions. And because when I'm with you, I feel like I can finally breathe again. Tears ran down Iris's cheeks. But I can't give you children. I can't give you what a man deserves from a wife. Garrett lifted her hand and softly kissed her knuckles. You've already given me 6 reasons to be happy, 6 children who now have a mother. That's more than any man could ask for. Behind them in the window, 6 faces watched. Louisa had her hands clasped together as if in prayer. Wyatt was smiling. Teddy was clapping, not fully understanding but feeling the joy. Will you marry me, Iris Caldwell? Garrett asked, his voice rough with emotion. Not because we have to, but because I want to, because I want you to be my wife for real, not just on paper. Iris looked at him. She saw the sincerity in his eyes, felt the love that had been growing slowly between them like a patient plant under the sun. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I'll marry you. The children burst into shouts of joy, running toward them, hugging them both. and as the sun set over Wyoming, a family built with pain, loss, and second chances finally found its place in the world. But first, they had a wedding to plan and only 10 days to do it. The following days passed in a whirlwind. There was no time for a fancy dress or a grand celebration. They only had 10 days before Hutchins returned, and every moment counted. News spread through Copper Ridge like wildfire. This time, instead of poisonous gossip, helpful hands arrived. Mrs. Kowalski appeared with white fabric. "It's not silk, but it'll do for a decent dress," she said, her eyes moist. Dr. Preston offered his house for the ceremony. "It's bigger than the church, and everyone will want to come." Iris worked late each night, sewing her own dress by lamplight. Lusa sat beside her, handing her pins, talking about small things she'd never shared before. "Mama, would she have liked you?" the girl asked one night. Iris stopped sewing and looked at Lusa tenderly. "I think your mother would have wanted your father to be happy and for you all to be well cared for. I'm not here to replace her, Lusa. No one could, but I'm here to love you as best I can." Lusa hugged Iris tightly. "I think she would have liked you." Meanwhile, Garrett worked on the ranch with renewed energy. He repaired the fence that had been broken for months. He painted the house. He even built a small wooden arch decorated with pine branches for the ceremony. Wyatt helped him, hammering nails with determination. "Nervous, Dad?" Wyatt asked. Garrett smiled, something rare in him. "A little, but it's the good kind of nervous." "Do you love her?" The question stopped Garrett. He lowered the hammer and looked toward the house, where Iris was hanging clothes on the line, Teddy playing at her feet. "Yes," he said simply, "I love her." The wedding day dawned clear and fresh. It was early October. The air smelled of dry leaves and new promises. Iris dressed in the small room, her hands trembling as she buttoned the simple white dress. Luisa entered carrying something wrapped in paper. "I found this in Mama's trunk. She would have wanted you to have it." It was a delicate veil, embroidered with small flowers. Iris cried as Luisa gently placed it in her braided hair. "Thank you, sweetheart." The ceremony was small but perfect. There was no priest available, so the county judge officiated. The neighbors filled Dr. Preston's yard, forming a semicircle. The 6 children stood at the front, dressed in their best clothes, faces bright with excitement. When Iris appeared, walking slowly on Wyatt's arm, he had insisted on giving her away. Garrett forgot to breathe. She was beautiful, simple, real, not a fairy tale bride, but something better, a strong woman who had survived rejection and chosen to love again. The judge began the ceremony. The words were formal, legal, but when it came time for the vows, Garrett spoke from the heart. "Iris, I can't promise you riches or an easy life. But I promise you that every morning you wake up, you'll know you are needed, valued, loved. I promise you that these children will always have a mother. And I promise you that I will never, ever make you feel like you're not enough." Iris's voice trembled as she responded. "Garrett, I can't give you children of my blood, but I give you my heart, my life, and my promise to love these 6 as if I had borne them myself. I promise to build a home with you, not just a house. And I promise that no matter what storms come, I will not leave." The judge smiled. "By the power vested in me by the territory of Wyoming, I now pronounce you husband and wife." When Garrett kissed Iris, it was soft, respectful, but full of promise. The children screamed and applauded. Teddy ran to them, hugging both their legs. "Mama, Papa." The celebration was simple. Cake made by Mrs. Kowalski, lemonade, fiddle music played by the blacksmith. But as the sun set and the stars began to shine, Iris danced with Garrett in the dirt yard, surrounded by laughing children and neighbors who had gone from judges to friends. That night back at the ranch, after the children were asleep, Iris and Garrett sat on the porch. He took her hand, interlacing his fingers with hers. "Any regrets?" he asked quietly. "Not for a second," she replied, resting her head on his shoulder. And under the starry Wyoming sky, 2 broken souls who had found healing in the most unexpected love were finally home. But their story wasn't over yet. Fate had one last gift in store, one that would arrive when they least expected it and prove that true love knows no bounds of blood or birth. Winter came gently that year, covering the Wyoming hills with snow that sparkled like sugar under the sun. 4 months had passed since the wedding, and life at the Stillwater Ranch flourished in ways no one had imagined. Iris was officially Mrs. Stillwater now, and the change was more than a name. The children called her Mama without hesitation. Garrett looked at her every morning as if he couldn't believe his good fortune, and she, for the first time in years, felt complete. One February afternoon, while preparing dinner, she heard hoofbeats approaching fast, too fast. She went out to the porch and saw Dr. Preston dismounting, his face tense. "Iris, thank God you're here. I need your help." "What happened?" "It's Martha Henley, the widow who lives across the river. She's in labor, but something's wrong, very wrong. You're the only one who can help her." Iris didn't hesitate. She grabbed her bag, told Garrett where she was going, and rode with the doctor through the snow. What she found in Martha's small cabin chilled her blood. The woman was pale, nearly pulseless, bleeding. The baby had been born a small, weak boy, but Martha had no strength left to hold him. Iris worked for hours, doing everything she knew, everything she'd been taught, but some battles can't be won with skill alone. When dawn arrived, Martha Henley closed her eyes for the last time, but not before whispering, "My baby, take care of him, please." Iris held the newborn against her chest, crying silently. Dr. Preston put a hand on her shoulder. She had no family, no one to take the child. He'll have to go to the orphanage in Cheyenne. Iris looked at the tiny one in her arms. He was so fragile, so helpless. His eyes barely opened, his little hands clutched at her blouse. No, she said softly, he's not going to any orphanage. The doctor looked at her surprised. Iris, I'm taking him home. When Iris arrived at the ranch with the baby wrapped in blankets, Garrett was on the porch. The children came running when they heard the horse. What happened? Garrett asked, looking at the bundle in Iris's arms. The mother didn't survive, Iris said, her voice breaking. He has no one, he was going to the orphanage. Garrett approached and looked at the baby's tiny wrinkled face. Then he looked at Iris, saw the tears in her eyes, the determination in her jaw, and then he did something that surprised even Iris. He smiled. One more, he asked softly. Iris blinked, tears falling freely. Just temporary until we find Iris, Garrett interrupted, placing his large hand gently on the baby's small head. We have room, we have love, and clearly this little one needs you. Are you sure? She whispered. I've never been more sure of anything. The children crowded around, looking with wonder. Hazel gently touched the baby's little hand. Is he our brother? She asked, eyes bright. If you want him to be, Iris replied. Yes, Teddy shouted. Baby, my baby. Louisa smiled, cheeks wet. 7, now we're 7. That night, after everyone was asleep, Iris sat in the rocking chair by the fire, the baby in her arms. Garrett sat at her feet watching her. What are you thinking? He asked. That a year ago I thought my life was over, that I'd never be a mother, that I was worth nothing. She looked at the baby, then at Garrett. And now I have 7 children, 7 reasons to wake up every morning, and a husband who makes me feel like I'm enough. Garrett squeezed her free hand. You're more than enough, you're everything. The baby made a small sound, snuggling closer to Iris. She kissed his forehead. What should we name him? She asked. How about Samuel? Garrett suggested. It means heard by God, because God clearly heard this family's prayers. Samuel Stillwater, Iris said, testing the name. It's perfect. The following months were chaotic, beautiful, exhausting, and full of joy. Sam grew strong under Iris's care and the love of 6 older siblings who constantly doted on him. The ranch thrived. The neighbors no longer gossiped. Instead, they admired. One spring afternoon, Iris was in the garden with Sam in a sling against her chest, teaching Clementine how to plant seeds. Louisa read under the tree. Wyatt and Jasper worked with Garrett in the stable. Hazel and Teddy chased butterflies. Garrett paused in his work, watching the scene. Wyatt followed his gaze. It's perfect, isn't it, Dad? Yes, Garrett replied, his voice full of wonder. It is. That night, with all 7 children finally asleep, Iris and Garrett sat on the porch like they always did. The stars shone above them. The wind blew softly. You know what Mrs. Kowalski told me today? Iris asked. What, that we're the biggest family in Copper Ridge? He laughed softly. 7 children. Can you imagine? Garrett pulled her toward him and kissed her head. I think we still have room for 1 or 2 more if they show up. Iris playfully hit his chest. Don't even think about it. But they both knew that if another needy child arrived at their door, they wouldn't hesitate to open their arms, because they had learned the most important lesson. Family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up, who stays, who takes your hand in the storms and tells you that you are enough. And on that ranch in the Wyoming hills, under the stars that had seen generations of stories, a woman who thought she would never be a mother had found her purpose, not by giving life, but by giving love. And in the end, that was the only thing that truly mattered.